from Young Americans for Liberty, Kristin Tate. Kristin, a lot of people were really worried about this from the very beginning because of the resources, because of the inability to have specialized one-on-one education. And we knew the most vulnerable people, folks out there, because we already have an achievement gap that's only going to get worse. If you graduate from high school in New York City and you're 2 or 3 years behind already, add another year to that. How can you even make a good living as an adult?
Yeah, this is so sad. It is time for our state and local leaders to stare down these teachers' unions that are holding our students hostage and reopen the schools permanently, Charles. To do otherwise would just be to ignore the science. This virtual learning is failing on an education level. It has been destructive to the health of our students, creating depression, anxiety, and all kinds of other issues. It's widened the achievement gap between poor students and students from more wealthy families, and it's been a disaster for working parents, particularly single working parents who are trying to simultaneously hold down a job while they educate their students from home. I mean, we know now that COVID-19 does not pose a significant threat to students and children, and the data also suggests that it really doesn't pose a significant threat to the staff. Brown University found that cases are at about 34 out of every 100,000 students and staff at reopened schools. But these teachers' unions, they just ignore the data. It's time that we put our students first and reopen these schools and keep them opened.
What do you make of, and I definitely understand where you're coming from with these teachers unions, because we've seen these sort of fights over and over again where it feels like they're in it just for themselves, not even for the students, and it's sort of heartbreaking. But what do you make of these cities, though, that won't push back, that they have to know? They're looking at the same data, Kristin, that you're looking at. They have parents who are complaining miserably. So what do you make of the fact that these cities, many of them are just going along with this?
It's a disgrace. A lot of these inner city schools, Charles, were failing before the pandemic. I mean, New York City had 140 public schools that had grades with 90% state exam failure rates. So, of course, it's going to be a disaster when you take these already failing schools and you try to make them go virtual. This is why homeschooling and private schooling has exploded since the pandemic started. But, students who come from families who can't afford tutors, private education, and childcare, they are being so hurt by this. I mean, the Fairfax Teachers Union in Virginia, they say they don't want to reopen the schools for in-person learning until August 2021. If these schools won't reopen, I say we defund them and we just, let the parents have the money to arrange private education for their children. And by the way, this also underscores why we really need school choice in this country, because a lot of these students are stuck in horrible schools and they just don't have the opportunities that more fortunate children with financial means do.
Absolutely. The forces of a free market where competing schools will obviously have to offer better curriculum, more caring, and more attention will benefit everyone in the community. I agree 1,000%. Kristin, thank you so much. Always appreciate your insight and thoughts on these things.